everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and we have a really good crew tonight, a very refreshing crew tonight. And, our theme is sports betting. And I'll tell you what, folks, I assure you that this should be a very educational show, to say the least. And I am glad to be joined by the guy who gave me the idea to do about sports betting, John Ryan. Welcome to the broadcast, John.
Thanks for having me for the first time. This is quite an honor to make my debut with you guys and Smoking Jeremy and Brian Snow and yourself. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Smoking Jeremy B was supposed to be in Tulsa, but guess that trip is being delayed just a little bit. Well, at least he's back in Michigan for at least another show. Welcome back, Smoking.
Glad to be here. Always good to talk sports betting. I don't care.
Yeah, and Brian Snow, come out wherever you are. Of course, sure he'll be here in a minute. And for a lot of you people living in the Midwest, it's probably snowing someplace. But meanwhile, let me give everybody an overview of what we're doing tonight. We are going to be talking about sports betting in many, many different ways. So, really looking forward to have John on from time to time. And we encourage any comments and so forth from everybody out there that wants to talk about this incredible topic. So, with that said, okay, John, we might just start it off with you and go from there. So you've been a sports bettor for 27 years. What made you decide to do this?
Well, as briefly as I can, Scott, I had a Wall Street career. I worked up in New York City. I lived 2 blocks from the Twin Towers, and sentiment became a big thing in the markets, and it was something that was evolving in the mid '90s. We started building some of the first price pattern recognition systems and neural networks. And I was in charge of our crude oil operations as well as, I did international bonds and, worked with institutions like Harvard Endowment and others. And one Friday afternoon in one of our meetings, one of the crude oil traders, after the meeting was over, pulled me aside and said, "Why don't we take those models and apply it to sports betting? We'll make a fortune." And I, honest to God, looked at him and I said, "You are completely out of your mind, and you're lucky I don't fire you right now, because that is the stupidest thing I ever heard of. It's a coin flip. There's no way there's any patterns that repeat in sports betting." Well, over time, he finally got me to create a couple small databases, and then there was that eureka moment where, I probably can't say what I said on the air, but you have these moments where you go, "Oh my God! I mean, oh my God, this actually works." And of course, the industry, back then you had those Saturday morning shows that we have inside information. The quarterback's wife is pissed at him, and you can bet everything you own on this game. And I thought, my God, people are actually listening to this and executing on this kind of advice. So I took it one step further and I figured, well, why not create a little ethical hobby and show people how to do this, have fun, teach them the dangers of betting, the dangers of being addicted to betting, trying to recognize when you're betting too much. And it's been going on now for almost 28 years.
Wow. I mean, that to me, 28 years doing this, I mean, to be able to do something that long, especially knowing full well that it is associated with sports betting, is amazing. Till Brian comes back, though, we'll go in a little bit more deeper. So, Jeremy, why don't you ask John a question about this? This intrigues me because now you've brought up some fascinating points that I want to get to in a moment.
Sure.
Well, what is the hardest sport? I mean, you never know what you can do with what. I mean, not so much the handicapping side of it, but like just how to read it.
Oh, that is a great question. I mean, I have new customers every year, and they always say, which is your better sport, the NFL or college football? And my honest answer every single time is, I don't know year to year. A lot of times I can come off a year where the NFL was really, really good and the college football was mediocre, a little bit over 500 during the regular season. Bowl games might have gone well. But from year to year, you really don't know. I think the key is that it's like a portfolio of stocks, and you spread that risk as best you can, optimizing or hoping to optimize your total rate of return over the course of a 365-year calendar year. If you don't like baseball, I get it. A lot of people don't. I would encourage you to bet baseball. It starts Thursday, by the way. But in all seriousness, if you do a full season of NFL, you really want to include with any handicapper you work with. I think if they do college football, you want to include both of them because in any given season, NBA, college basketball, the same idea. One can suddenly have trends that have not been apparent for 7 years. And this college basketball season was certainly one of them. And that would be my recommendation. I think that, first of all, you got to take that longer term approach. You don't you don't do this to get rich. You do this to have fun. You're a recreational bettor. You're seeking advice from pros like Scott, like Jeremy, like Brian, and you do what you want with it. There's a word I like, eclecticize. You take a little bit from Brian, you take a little bit from Jeremy, you take a little bit from me and Scott, and you form your own opinions, and I think you would do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to have that kind of longevity in an industry like this, it blows my mind. It really, really does. And and especially with the specialization that everything seems to be going on right now, it just really is. I mean, can you imagine anybody doing this for that long? It's unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that. I find it to be, something that I do work at this 7 days a week. I do take it on vacations, and you would think, well, gee, you got to take a break once in a while. But it's so fascinating to me because it's like the game of golf, and I love to play golf. And every time you go out, you learn something new about yourself. You learn something new about the swing. You learn something new from the analytics of a game. Or a season, and you keep working at it, and it becomes a true passion. So it's really not work when it's a passion, right, guys? I mean, if you're doing what you love to do, then it's a hobby.
Exactly.
All right. So when you talk about, all right, Brian, welcome back. So let's bring him up to speed. All right. Well, there you go. Salute to everybody. So, all right. So we're bringing you up to speed, Brian. And we talk about John, 27 years in the business. So, Brian, what do you have to say about that? I'm sure you're probably hearing some of this.
Other than I'm an old guy.
I'm an old guy.
We're all old guys.
You've been at it 27 years in sports betting. I've been at it 27 years as a play-by-play announcer and a sportscaster. So that's a magic. Every year beyond that's a magic number to me. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, 27 is a good number. You know what? We got Will Vogel participating, so let's get some of those. And I'll tell you what, John, you can react to that, and then everybody else can. All right, so, John, with that said, I'm going to put you in charge of reading Mr. Vogel's comment. Go ahead.
Let's see. Mr. Ryan, when you tell people that you're involved with sports betting, they say why there's a lot of risk, and we know there can be rewarding at times too. What do you say to the naysayers? They haven't given it a shot. I would have to think that they really haven't given it an honest shot to go with a methodology that's very disciplined, such as my own. You bet the same amount. You don't get crazy. You bet. I end all my shows with bet with your head not over it, and may all the wins be yours. And I emphasize that because for 28 years, I have never wanted to affect someone's life by giving out betting information that would negatively impact their lifestyle or their quality of life for that matter. And, you have to remember this is, a dangerous thing. It's like trading options. It's like trading futures contracts. And you have to understand the risk. And you have to understand that you almost have to assume that every bet you make, you're going to lose. And if you do that, you're going to be okay. So I would say that the naysayers really, haven't... I don't know how to really explain it. They really haven't given it an honest try with a proven method. I'll say it like that.
I was going to say something similar to that to reiterate after you were done. 9 times out of 10, the naysayers are somebody that had bet on a bad bet because they didn't know what the heck they were doing when they did it and didn't ask for any professional advice.
That's huge.
I want to
That's
go back to Brian a little bit, just so you know. I know you're away, so I want John you to reiterate this question I have. What made you decide to do this? Because I know Brian was away. I think it's important that Brian picks up on that because I think that a lot of people that are out there right now would certainly be intrigued about why you decided to do it, Brian. So we can catch up a little bit there. Okay.
all right.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a lot of similarities, and this will be a little bit different take than I did before Brian came on. But there's a lot of similarities between Wall Street and sports betting. And I'm not saying that Wall Street is a gamble.
Yes, it
Wall
is.
Street is a longer term game. It's not a 60-minute game. It's a 6 year type of horizon. Everything's stretched out. But if you think about the sentiment readings of the marketplace, when you get 70%, 75% bulls, that usually marks the top. You have a seesaw, fear and greed. When when greed goes like this and fear is way down, you get tops because nobody's afraid of losing money. Such is the same thing in the betting markets when you get 70, 75% of people saying that XYZ team is going to beat Florida Atlantic, and Florida Atlantic is trailing by 7 for the fourth time in 4 games and comes back and wins. That happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough that if you would, apply that in a disciplined format, you'll have a chance to make money. So the other thing with the betting sentiment, and guys, I get this is one of my pet peeves. You hear on the major outlets, let's find out what Vegas is saying about this game. And they talk about the lines and how Vegas is trying to trick us. They're not trying to trick us. They're doing the same thing that the market maker for Apple Computer is doing. They want equal buyers and sellers on both sides because at the end of the day, the casino could care less who wins the game because they're taking 10% of the take anyway. So that's another thing to remember, that nobody's trying to trick you. That's just baloney. So anyway, I'll leave it like that for you, Brian.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that isn't baloney here. You'll want to read this one, Brian. Go ahead.
Mr. Ryan, I subbed your YouTube channel, and I'm going to do the same.
My goodness. That's what happens when you make it. Oh, Nelly, as Keith Jackson would say. All right, go ahead, Brian. You were playing all those memes earlier. I had to throw in the Keith Jackson reference.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, I got plenty more. Don't worry. You'll see nothing.
Keith Jackson's one of my favorite announcers of all time. Keith Jackson's one of the biggest reasons I got into it.
Well, Brent Musford is mine. We'll leave it at that. All right, so let's go on to the next topic. Brian, was there anything you wanted to add to John?
No,
okay.
I'm good.
Right. Okay, John, with that said, what are the main sports you specialize in?
Well, I guess it would be appropriate to do a whoa Nelly at some point during the rest of the show, right?
I already did it, but
I'll never forget that stuff with Keith Jackson. I mean, that's the 2 words that made him famous. I'm sorry, Scott, where am I transitioning to here?
What are the main sports that you specialize in? Any particular sports you like that you mainly specialize in?
I go right through the calendar year. So, all the major sports, college, NFL, NBA, college basketball, even PGA golf. I really emphasize the majors there. Briefly, what my models do, and it's a little bit of machine learning, not to impress anybody. It just helps me. I put together a pool, and you'll see it next week on Monday or Tuesday, of players, and it's usually 18 to 24 players. And then as a viewer, it's up to you to then decide which of those 6 you're going to pick. And, every once in a while, one of the viewers has picked, 5 or 6 of those golfers in an optimized way, and they end up making some money. I haven't been that lucky yet. The most I ever won in a DFS golf thing was $1,500. But still, when you're putting $20 or $30 in and you get that kind of return, it's pretty darn exciting. So I do that. That's going to be exciting for the Masters next week. I do Major League Baseball. I have an expert as a buddy of mine. I'll give a shout out to Rocky Atkinson, who does NASCAR. He's very, very good at it. And UFC, I have a couple of friends that are also very good at it, including my oldest boy, who's extremely good at it with identifying dogs in UFC. So I rely on them. And I guess that brings up a point, guys, too, since I'm new to the show, is that you can't do this in a vacuum. You can't be sitting in a closet and having all these magic formulas that you think you have, or a black box that's giving you all the information to be a successful sports bettor. The more people you talk to, like the guys like I'm with tonight, the more you listen to them, the better off you're going to be in the long run. You can't do this by yourself.
You guys want anything to it?
It's what he says. The experience pays off. The longer you at it, the more you're not by yourself.
What about you, Smoking?
No, I mean, you can't add anything when somebody completes it.
It's okay with me. Next topic. What sports are the toughest to handicap, John?
I would have to say over the years, college basketball, and it's the beginning of the season where sometimes I have struggled, and this year I did. So I'll be the first to admit, full transparency when we're running, and there will be times if you would ever subscribe to my service, I will lose 7 in a row. I mean, hopefully we don't do that in the next 12 months, but I would be lying to you if I haven't had some streaks where it's a head scratcher, and sometimes you start thinking, wow, am I like ever going to win again? Like, am I going to lose like 30 in a row? And of course not. So you grind it out. And the hardest part is when you hit those troughs and when you hit those win streaks, like when you rip off 11 in a row, you're almost afraid that the next one's going to be a loss. And it's human nature to think that. And, it's like golf. You have to be in the moment. You hear the announcers talk about it all the time. Make the shot that matters now. You can't be thinking about, oh, my God, if I bogey this hole, I'm not going to break 90. If you think like that, you're not going to break 90. And it's the same thing with the sports betting mentality. You have to go day at a time and not let the previous day or the previous week impact your decision-making in the present day.
Okay. All right, you want to do this? I'll give you an opportunity to do it. Give out a free NBA pick for the Tuesday card. After all, I know we have some NBA fans out there that are paying attention to the show. So go ahead, John.
Well, I appreciate it. I know I'm talking pretty much here, but let me get to my my notes here. We're looking at Miami in the Raptors game. They're going to be on the road tomorrow night, and this actually for my models is an 8-unit best bet. This goes to my clients as a premium bet. Scale is from 5 to 10. The 10 is the 5% max bets, and what that means is that as pros, we have a bankroll. And you wager 3, 4, or 5%. In my humble opinion, that seems to work. I know a lot of friends in Vegas that do the same thing. And when you really have a play that you're confident with, that's where you do the 5%. But they are somewhat rare. Like I've had, let's see, I'm 42 and 18 over the last 3 years. So that's 60 plays in 36 months. So figure out how many that is per year. And it's not many, but when they come up, it gets your attention. But this is an 8-unit, and this is the majority of all the plays within the portfolio of plays that are released. And it's backed by a system I think is pretty good here. And a lot of these systems are evaluated on a Pearson correlation. And I'll just leave it at that. You don't need to know how to calculate it or what it is even, but it gives you a number that tells you how good these different parameters talk to each other. And if they're talking good to each other and they keep working together, then that makes for a good system. And I hope that made sense. So what we're doing here is we're betting on road teams that are coming off a double-digit home loss to the current foe in their previous same season meeting. That set of parameters has gone 162 wins, 100 losses, 3 pushes against the number, 62% winning bets over the last 7 seasons, and 107 and 64 against the spread over the past 5 seasons. It has not had a losing season in 9 consecutive years. So if you're ever going to follow just one system, this might be what you're looking for. So that is a play on the Miami Heat tomorrow night.
You guys want to add to this?
Whoever is playing the Pistons, bet them to score over 100.
Well, I don't know. You seem to be riding that Dwayne Casey card, which is probably...
He ain't been fired yet. He needs to be fired. He needed to be fired
40
40 games ago.
You listen. You only have 2 more weeks to worry about. Just like many years ago, we had to deal with Rod Marinelli when he got fired on my birthday. Oh, he got
Stop.
fired on my
Oh.
birthday.
Oh,
Not Rod, not a
That's
Rod
all right.
Marinelli mention.
They weren't kneecap
Ron-
biting then. I don't know what they
Ron
were
Mayer
doing.
is
They were-
smelly.
Yeah, I can tell you a
Not a
story.
Rod,
about-
not a Rod Marinelli reference.
Yeah. Oh well, come on. You
To
know, I
the-
mean, we got
I know.
kneecap biting.
Listen, the Lions had Rod Marinelli, and my hometown Chicago Bears had Matt Nagy.
The
Well,
Techno
we-
Bowl
yeah.
offense.
The
Yeah, but at
Techno
least
Bowl
Matt
offense.
games. Come on, Brian, give me a break, man. At least Matt won games. Black Monday for the Lions back then was, what was it, Mike Martz when they let him go on Black Monday, and Rod
Oh.
Marinelli stayed on, and all of a sudden they never won another game.
Right,
Was
right,
it Jim
right,
Soletto
right,
that was your
right.
offensive coordinator? Who knows what he's doing out there? Probably peddling newspapers or something. I don't know where this guy's at.
You want to know what, though? Still the best name in football was an assistant coach for the Lions, Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's still active.
I know,
an
he's still
offensive-
active. Yeah.
He's an offensive coordinator somewhere, isn't he? I think. with
I was
the
going to
Colts.
ask, was he an offensive coordinator for the Lions? Wasn't he
Yeah.
an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, for the first last year of Scaldwell and the first year of Petrasha.
Patricia. Yeah, that's right. These guys haven't heard of. All right, we got to give the floor to
I love it.
Jeremy. We have 2 new guys here, okay? So Brian Snow and John Ryan. Okay, you are officially allowed to hear Smoking Jeremy's nickname of Matt Patricia. Okay, but you have to say it just like I do the Nelly.
Yeah, it's Matt Petrasha. And it's Jim Scaldwell because he was fine in the regular season. And as soon as he got to the playoffs, he was
He got
scalded
scalded.
off the field.
He got scalded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Seattle Seahawks. Hello.
And the refs in Dallas versus us the first time they made the playoffs.
You know what? I saw that game with a bunch of friends. I was living in Chicago at the time. I watched that game with a bunch of friends, and we all just wanted to see Dallas go down.
Mm-hmm. And they were.
They were dead in the water. They were dead in the water. And when they picked up the flag,
that was the first time in NFL history we heard the words, "There is no flags for pass interference." If there was no flag on the play, they should have left it at that. The fact that they announced that there's no flag for pass interference, it was pass interference, and they're just saying we're letting it go.
This is after they called the penalty. They announced the penalty.
Yeah, and they moved the chains. They were moving the chains, and all of a sudden, no, there's no flag.
And there was a clear PI against Robert Pettigrew, I believe.
Brandon Pettigrew, yes.
Pettigrew. Thank you.
And back then it was called face guarding.
Right.
Face guarding, whatever. That should have been 15 and a first.
All right, okay. I don't want to rehash those.
I'm sorry.
memories. That's okay, Brian. You got a mulligan on that one.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for reiterating the things I've been saying for years.
Yeah, we have a lot of different caps here. I don't know what John's is. I know what Brian's is. You probably you can really see John is Brian's. It's very transparent what his hat is or lack thereof. And the other we have the 3 hat brothers. All right, leave it alone.
Then and also, John, anybody who bet the Lions versus Dallas covered that game.
All right, so you know what, John?
I just ate food. I just made sure I had food that game. I wasn't going to bet that game. The hell with that.
I was actually thinking that was the game that Detroit won outright, but I guess I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was a while back.
Yeah, it was a while back.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Obviously, what you're doing is pretty popular, John, because your Twitter following is awfully good. You know, you want to talk about some pretty good Twitter numbers. Here's the thing, folks. He's following 7,907 people. That was the last I looked today, John. So that was the last I looked. 12,000 followers, 12,000K. So there must be a bunch of people that think this guy knows what he's talking about. Ryan, what are your thoughts about that amount of people? I don't think our followings are nearly like this guy's.
If I can
That's pretty good.
If I can get a couple thousand on my Twitter, I'd be good. But John's got me beat. Bad.
People beat.
It's all perspective though, because I have a couple followers that are 7 figures.
Really?
And that puts it in perspective. I mean, measly 12,000. There's really not much difference between 5,000 and 12,000, in my opinion, or even people that, there's a lot of people out there that buy their followers and have,
Yeah.
50,000, but then when they do a tweet, they only have 3 likes. Um, you have to do it organically, and that's the bottom line. You can,
Right.
go out and buy your followers. That doesn't mean you're going to get another 10,000 just because you have 30.
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's all relative. But honestly, when you get those powerful people that are influencers, that you can see it. You're all of a sudden your video views are at 5,000 views in the first hour, and you're excited. I remember when I first hit 300 followers, it was like pandemonium. It was like, oh my God, man, I got 300 followers. Because
Right.
I think people agree, like, humbly stated, when you start out like this, you really wonder, like, is the stuff that I'm going to be presenting, is anybody going to be interested in it?
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of back in the day with when Facebook started and what was it called, MySpace. I have to
God.
go around with friends and my family and say, what am I going to say? I'm sitting on the porch having a beer. I didn't really think I had to bring to the table that was going to make me, interesting. But
This
Yeah.
this world
fun.
has
It
become
really
too
is.
PC for its own good.
Yeah. I don't remember. I heard about MySpace, but that was as far as I went. But,
You know what?
interesting. You had 12,000 followers. How many of them would you say, John, are organic? I can't imagine you ended up buying a lot of your followers.
No,
But see,
they're 100% organic. And I'm very thankful and grateful for all of them. Every time I cross a century mark, I give a shout out to every single one, and then I highlight some of the ones that I've known since those days where I had 100, 200, 300 followers that are still loyal supporters. And I think that's something you have to do too if you want to make your Twitter growth increase, is that you have to give thanks to the people that got you started, and then you have to
right.
thank the people that are there for you now.
Right.
And the more you do that, and if it's genuine, it works. It's like a thank you. A thank you can make for a wonderful career in just about anything.
Yeah, amazingly enough, I find because we promote a lot of content, John, as you well know, and Brian and Jeremy. I don't get in any controversial tweets. I don't want no part of that stuff. I just want to
Oh,
make sure that when I put stuff up there, it's informational, that you got something out of it, you read it, and you learned and educational, and
yep.
you left that article smarter than you had before you even read it, let
Mhm.
alone this show. I mean, my goal here is to inform and educate, have a little fun doing it. If you can't do any of the three, then you have no business being in this business anyhow, especially
Exactly.
new media.
Yep.
And once my first job ever was a producer at ABC Radio out in Detroit at WXYZ. So, I
Mhm.
learned from behind the scenes until I ended up going out there and have this thing here. And they always say a radio voice. I was never a real big TV guy, but all of a sudden I have these cameras, which forces us all to be visual. Go figure that.
Yeah.
But no, I respect what you've done, John. My gut feeling is that your 12,000 followers are a result of word of mouth, especially with these bets, because word of mouth travels real fast, especially if it's good, but it can annihilate you if it's really bad, as we've seen so many people find out.
As you and I have talked, Scott, I think that the key is I do these quick hitting videos that give out betting systems, like I just did for the Miami game.
Hmm.
And you do it in less than 2 minutes. You have some, fancy graphics. I have the Adobe Creative Suite, and the less I almost feel like just kidding around. Like the less they see of me, the more they see of graphics, and everything's changing every couple seconds. You get engagement, and then once you get the engagement, then you get curiosity, and then hopefully you get a follower from it. So I found those to be really successful. And the other thing is consistency. You put out stuff almost not just every day, but try to do it every single day at the same time. If we have a show, and I apologize for making us late tonight, um, but if the show that people can count on it being 9 o'clock every single Monday, and they like the show, they're going to put it in their calendar, or they're going to put it in their head. Yeah, every Monday I get to listen to Scott and Brian and Jeremy, and they're gonna come watch.
Do you find that on Twitter that you go out there and preview the show on that? And do you tag anybody, or you just tweet it out there without tagging anybody? What would
As you know, once in a while, I tag people. I've tagged you, and
Right.
it depends on the value of the content. I think. I think another thing with me having the experience I had at Wager Talk and Sports Memo,
Yeah.
that was huge. I learned an absolute ton of information from those folks, and those guys still come on my shows. I'm the only show that is permitted for them to come on because that's an exclusive arrangement.
Right.
But when you have power hitters like that are in Vegas, that have been there for a while and are well-known names, then I mean your show's going to get views, even if me, the host, is absolutely dumb.
Right.
It's like me being on the show with you guys. Brian, it has his excellent experience. All you guys have great resumes, so it stands to reason when people realize this that they're going to listen to you. There's no question.
All right, we're in March Madness now, and it just amazes me about this. Okay, 3 teams have made it to the Final Four for the first time: Miami, San Diego State, and FAU, and 2 are in Southern Florida. I mean, I'll ask you to go ahead and predict the games later, but let's have a little fun with this odds thing. What are the odds are of 3 teams making it to the Final Four for the first time, let alone the fact I think your highest seed is a 4, I believe now. Is that correct?
It's a 4.
I mean, this is unbelievable, John. I can't remember any time I've ever seen this before.
Who's the 4?
Connecticut.
Right. Well, to your point, it's never happened, and there's only been 2 years I've researched so far that there wasn't a number 1 involved in the Final Four. 1997, I believe it was, and 1980. Yeah. So. We're in uncharted territory. The one thing I will say is in the beginning of the tournament, I mentioned this on a couple of shows I was on, and again, it's from the use of advanced analytics, and that's not to impress anybody. It's to give me knowledge so I can share it with everybody. The pool of teams from seed 11 to 16 was by far the strongest of any tournament going back at least 10 years. The seeds 7 through 1 were among the weakest in the last 10 years. And I put out a bar chart of number 1 seeds. We had Purdue, Houston, Kansas, UCLA. UCLA in the bar chart was way up here. They were a normal number 1 based on all these components. Kansas should have been a number 3, according to the math and the analytics. The other 2 were below average. So again, you can say, well, gee, John, that's benefit of hindsight. And no, I didn't have Farley Dickinson and a lot of the other upsets, but we've done pretty well throughout the tournament. I've avoided a lot of disasters. But, nevertheless, that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And I don't know if it's because of the portal after COVID now and team, players can move all over the place rapidly. But what we're seeing here, I think, is a trend that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. And even though there's 363 Division I basketball teams, the parity among them is now collapsing. So the difference between a team that's 125 in the rankings and a team that's 50th is not nearly as great as it was just a year ago.
Anything you want to add to that, Jeremy?
No, I kind of was saying the same thing. Okay. About this year's pool. I mean, I said the top half doesn't look as good as the bottom half.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm about to go to a media day tomorrow with Dusty May. And I'll be curious to see what he has to say. Because you remember one thing about FAU is this was their final year in Conference USA. And now they're going to the AAC is what they're doing. So what a way to go out. I mean, when Conference USA, they've had a lot of interesting coaches over the years. I worked with Rex Walters before and Mike Jarvis, and I haven't met Dusty May, although that figures to change tomorrow. So while we're talking about it, okay, how do you size up the Miami and Connecticut game? And I have a couple of other questions that I want to ask you as well before we call it a night.
Okay. You want to take this first, Jeremy, or you want me to lead?
What is it?
I don't want to hog the microphone all night.
No, it doesn't matter. You're the new guy. So we're giving you the opportunity to hog it one night. Then after that, everybody's fair play.
Well, I think what we'll see here is we talked about sentiment in the beginning of this show, and the betting sentiment and the eye test for the public better. Who do you think they're going to bet on? They're going to bet on UConn. UConn has really played up to what everybody had expected preseason. They lost, I believe, 6 or 7 conference games in a row in February and were not playing well. What matters now is they're playing really, really well. However, on the charts, they're getting a little overbought, and they're going up against, they're not going up against a bad team. Miami brings the load every single night. I love their defensive tenacity, and that's going to be a war, and it may end up being what could be the national championship game when all is said and done. But I do think the value is going to be in Miami, especially if Connecticut sees a lot of betting action, that we get 75% of the tickets on Connecticut, but less than that on the money. And another thing I'll mention, in the Elite Eight and on, let's say the market opened up with Connecticut -4, and it comes to the game time and we're at 5.5 or higher. You want to fade that, because from that round on, it has hit 73%. Now, the number of tickets has to be 70% or more. I track 12 different books. That's how I come up with my numbers. And if that happens, that gives you a play which is highly contrarian on the Miami Hurricanes, plus whatever points it ends up being.
Okay, that's fair. So give me a winner, Miami or Connecticut.
I think here again, if you identify the winner, it's like Monday Night Football. You pick the winner, they're going to cover the spread. So I think if Miami covers the spread, they'll end up winning the game as well.
Okay, that's fair enough. You want to give a prediction on this one, Jeremy?
Both teams are playing really well, and UConn has just been lights out this tournament, and I think they've got the tournament experience and the coach right, and they could upset Miami.
Well, do you think with me wearing this hat that I can really afford to go against Miami?
No, I'm just saying my thoughts.
I know, I'm giving you mine now. I mean, I can go ahead and wear this U cap and not go against Miami. They smoked Indiana. They came from behind to beat Texas.
Oh, it was a weak Big Ten field this year. You can't say anything. I mean, it was horrible. The showing they had, they might as well have just forfeited and stayed home.
That's funny. Yeah, well, there you go.
Look at that championship game in the Big Ten. Purdue's up 18 with less than 10 minutes to go against Penn State. Not taking anything away from Penn State. They had a wonderful run. I mean, that's probably the one team, Jeremy, that actually played well down the stretch compared to the rest of them. I agree with you. As a composite, it was awful. But there's Penn State with seconds on the clock and the ball and a chance to beat Purdue in the championship game. And I think that was the clear sign that you really shouldn't bet Purdue in any of the games in the tournament, because eventually they weren't a team that was going to have it together to get to the Final Four. And then lo and behold, it happens in the first round, which is unimaginable. You have a 7'4" guy.
And
I don't think in the last 5 minutes against the smallest team in the tournament, one of the smallest teams in the history of the event.
Yep.
And that, I don't throw anybody under the bus, but I mean, you have to be accountable if you're the head coach of Purdue and admit Absolutely. That I screwed up. I didn't get our 7'4" player of the year candidate enough to the line to win the game. That was mind blowing. It really was.
Good point. All right. So Brian, with that said, okay, Miami, Connecticut, who you got?
Connecticut.
Okay.
In a runaway.
All right. Now we'll go on to the next one. Florida Atlantic against San Diego State. All right. You know what, Brian? We'll let you go ahead and lead off with this one.
I'm calling for the upset. Florida Atlantic.
Jeremy?
FAU.
I'm going FAU by double digits.
What about you, Jer?
I said FAU.
Okay. You going double digits or single digits?
I'm just saying they're going to win.
Good enough. All right, John.
FAU.
Well, you got a clean sweep, all four of us, FAU or Owls. So with that said, okay, I've always been curious about this, John. Indian casinos are all over the place. do you ever take any stock in what their sports betting situation is like? But before I do that, I do want to bring up something that Will Vogel brought up, which I think is I've wondered about. Okay, we won't ask you to put odds on this, but he'd be interested if Dusty May gets a bigger job. Everybody has a chance to comment on that. I think it's always in play, but maybe it just depends. I mean, but I'll comment last. What do you think? Do you think Dusty May maybe moving elsewhere, John?
I to be honest, I don't follow the coaching movements all that much. More so in the NFL, I do. I let the coaching changes happen, and then I literally adjust the database, and I have a couple hundred of these betting systems that are related to a new coach coming into a basketball season. So I don't follow the trends enough to be even commenting on it, but I would think he would be on a lot of people's radar. He is going to the ACC, where that school now probably is making plans to have a bigger arena. What was that arena seats?
2,900, 3,000. Yeah, they've got to do
I
something
would
with
think that
that.
they're going to have a bigger stadium after a few seasons in the ACC, which means they can pay
Right,
him a
AAC,
lot more
American
money.
Athletic. It's sorry to get you confused, pal. Atlantic Coast Conference versus the American Athletic Conference. Everybody does it all the time, so don't feel too bad.
I've done it.
Yeah, we all don't worry, John. We've all done it. AAC, get
That's
used
true.
to it. If you want to tongue tie yourself AAC versus ACC, then it's a very easy thing, and you'll get a mulligan because we've all done it. Just like a lot of people still
Too
go
easy.
the
Too
San Diego
easy.
Chargers. Don't worry, or the Oakland Raiders. They all mess it up. But all right, go out.
Or the
Continue.
Houston Oilers. I've done that.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
still a step up in conference, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it
So
is.
you would think that the revenues to the school are going to be bigger.
Well, not only that, they got to build a better baseball stadium for crying out loud. I've been preaching the choir for that for years, and I've always said what they call it the Burrow 2,900. That's why it's hard to entice a bigger coach to go in there with a gym. But with all this extra Final Four and conference money, I would hope that President Stacy Volnick might be thinking that the Burrow's too small. Another place they could go to temporarily if they have bigger teams come in would be the Florida Live Arena where the Panthers play, and they do play some games over there depending on the demand. I've always thought that would be a viable place if they needed to draw a bigger opponent, and I think so. Jeremy, Brian?
The longest baseball game I ever covered was 21 innings.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was a regional game. It was, I want to say it was Purdue and Kent State, and it was at the Steel Yard in Gary, Indiana. And my friend Mark took me there, and we were going to watch a doubleheader because it was a doubleheader scheduled. Nope. By the time that Purdue game was done, Mark looked at me, I looked at him, and he said, "I got a headache." I said, "I got a bigger one. Let's go home." we got out of there. And Mark had the only working vehicle at the time. Mine was busted, but longest game I've ever done for a 7-6 finish, 21 innings.
Well, I've got you all topped. I just covered the Rolex 24 and stayed up 30 hours in a row to do it. Rolex
That's
24.
impressive.
I will go hide my head in shame now.
Well, I wouldn't hide it by shame. It was a bucket. In fact, I went out there and interviewed a guy that covered 89 24-hour races, and I managed to get through my first one. Now I'm a junkie for those things. I've covered the 12 hours of Sebring a couple times, but no, I don't need 12. I want 24. It takes a whole lot of caffeine and a lot of
I was
other
going to say, how much caffeine did you put down to cover that?
more than you'll ever want to know.
His colon and kidneys are still recovering.
Yeah,
I
well,
pulled an all-nighter here in the office, and it was at a point where I did not have any caffeine for a full week. So I figure I'm going to crash by 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock became 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock became 10, and 10 became 2 in the morning, and 2 became 5 in the morning. And by the time my wife comes in here to check on what I'm doing, I'm just about to pass out here on the desk. And she says, "What are you doing? Why didn't you come to bed?" And she saw all the projects and all the windows open that I was doing. And she gave me a direct order. And her direct order was, when you sign off of your morning show, take a nap.
Well, my wife knows that to me, sleep is like the most expensive car you can get. It's called a luxury. So, and I won't tell you how much sugar I had during that 30-hour period because I had a lot. So I
I
don't know where
I
you
get it.
produce. I don't have to divulge anymore between sugar and
Nope.
caffeine.
Nope.
That is an oh Nelly. And I don't know what an oh Nelly is. That's not for, by
Yeah,
the way.
you had a few. You had a few of those. You had a
Oh,
few of those.
you can only imagine. You know what? I'll let everybody's imagination run amok, as they say, wild. So, all right.
I
So,
I did a 4 overtime game at Chicago State one year,
oh, did you?
2009. It was Chicago State and Utah Valley,
Yeah.
and it was tied at 79 at the end of regulation. I forgot what the score was at the end of the first overtime, but by the time the fourth overtime hit, it was 114 apiece, and I couldn't get to the bathroom.
Really?
I went through 8 bottles of water, 4 bottles of Pepsi, and I'm talking the 20-ounce Pepsi, and a couple of orange juices because I was losing my voice. By the time I got out of there and I got there to work at 5 o'clock because it was a 7 o'clock tip, and I allowed myself 2 hours to get set up and everything. I didn't get out of there till damn near 2 in the morning.
Well, let me tell you, if you ever cover an NFL game and you go to one, I remember years ago at the Pontiac Silverdome, I would get to the game, the early ones. Brian, you've been in the field.
Yep.
You get there around 8 o'clock and don't leave till probably 6, 7 o'clock if it's a
Yep.
1 o'clock game. So
Yep.
there's
For
an even
1 o'clock
12
game.
hours. The average fan wouldn't know because
Yep.
they're obviously not in that position to do
Yeah.
it.
That's for a noon kickoff or a 1 o'clock
Well,
kickoff in the
Well,
Eastern.
right, yeah, whatever. It's all, 1 Eastern, noon, or actually the people on the West Coast have it pretty good. You
Yeah.
can go watch football at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, got the rest of your day. Not here
Yep.
on the East Coast, and I've lived in Phoenix, went both ways and seen it both ways.
Yep.
So with that said, I got a couple interesting topics, Mr. Ryan. You ready? All right. Here's
Sure.
one. Indian casinos, long before casinos sprung up like a bunch of mushrooms. Okay, because that's what they do. They sprung up once the tribes took over, then casinos, and now you got them everywhere. Every time, in fact, it's gambling so interesting that, nobody wanted nothing to do with Vegas. But then all of a sudden, Detroit get 3 casinos. They're not going to kick the Lions out, although a lot of Lions haters probably wish they did years ago. But I'm just kidding. Well, maybe, I don't know. You got casinos in Detroit. You got them in Vegas, and now you got them all over the place. And now, whether you like them or not, and by the way, now Las Vegas has the Raiders. Okay, so gambling, whether it's online gambling or the tribes. But I don't want to get into online. What are your thoughts about the Indian reservations and the tribe casinos, knowing that many of them probably have sports books?
I think what they do is they follow the herd. The opening lines are in basketball you have some metrics. Little shout out to my buddy Eric. You can use KenPom, and everybody's going to be kind of right there. The big global forces like a Heritage, who takes if you wanted to bet $200,000 and you're there, they'll take it. And they're, obviously one of the only ones that really does that without giving you a different line. Like
Right.
sometimes you wonder how these guys like Mattress Mac gets a bet down. Well, it's not all at 4.5. If that's the line that you and I would get, he gets different numbers. And that's so the book is balanced. Like we said earlier in the show, the book's goal is to have the same amount of money on both teams, and they're
Right.
happy as a lark because they get 10% of the take then. And no risk, no exposure. So with it, I don't think they're actually big enough to get on the radar of where, like, I'm pulling numbers from BetMGM or Bet Rivers in terms of betting flows and that kind of thing. And if I would add them, I'd be willing to bet that the percentages are probably exactly the same as the big boys. People, we're all humans, and we have betting behaviors, and whether we're in Detroit or whether we're in Philadelphia, Princeton, LA, Vegas, the composite is pretty much going to be the same, I think.
You guys want to add to it?
Nothing. No lie to be found there.
Mm-mm.
No
Yeah,
lie
well,
to be found.
I feel
Well,
like I'm
no,
talking way too much.
no, you're not.
No,
All
you're
right, I'll
not,
tell you
man.
what, I guarantee these guys are going to have something to say about the next topic, okay? And every baseball fan will probably wonder, what about Pete Rose? Is he a Hall of Fame? Should he be in the Hall of Fame? Will they put him in when he's dead or what? Because he hasn't helped his case any when you try to overshadow the Hall of Fame ceremonies with a book signing and lying to the commissioner. So, all right, I know everybody's waiting for Pete Rose, shoeless Joe Jackson. So, I know that Brian will have something to say about it, right, Brian? Right, Brian. Okay. And Jeremy B will have something to say about it, right, Jeremy? Oh, and I know.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we'll lead it off with JRS1.
Well, I've always, I think this is the first time I've ever talked about Pete Rose on a live show, so I will be
Well, there's always the
careful.
first time with everything when you're dealing with me, but don't worry about it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely sticking my toe in the waters, and I don't feel any sharks yet. But I do think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I have
Okay.
been to the Hall of Fame. I was there, at Cooperstown for the Cooperstown Dream Park many, many times for that national championship, being an assistant coach on some of these juggernaut teams. Quite the experience. Pete Rose is already in the Hall of Fame. He is listed as the hits leader on several displays. If there's 10 displays with Pete Rose listed in the display, I might be wrong. It might actually be 20. But nevertheless, he's in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And where they have the plaques and the bus, that's the only place he's not seen.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I find it, kind of amazing. And even, taking it one step further, I don't want to digress here, but the steroid era. The
Right.
mission statement
Okay.
of the Hall of Fame is to report the history of baseball. They have no corporate affiliation or connection to Major League Baseball. And that's the
Right.
point I want to drive home. It's not Major League Baseball telling the Hall of Fame, well, Pete Rose can't be in, and the guys who took steroids can't be in. It's the voters that are listening to Major League Baseball and voting what they think is right. I'm not saying they're voting wrong, but if they're reporting the history of baseball, then the steroid guys, they ought to be reported, and they had accomplishments. And unfortunately, that wasn't done right. Pete Rose been on his own team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's some guys in the Hall of Fame that really aren't nice guys. The older ones. And I'm not going to mention any names because then I'll get myself in big time trouble. But
Okay.
I think if you do your own research, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see that Pete Rose really wasn't all that bad a guy. Like, he wasn't toxic. He probably was really a lot of fun to be around, like a Mickey Mantle. So I think he should be in.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? You don't have to mention no names. Number one, okay? I've been to the Hall of Fame 3 times, and I took my wife there this past summer. And you're right, John. I mean, he's all over the place with all the historical items. He just doesn't have a plaque. Otherwise, he's all over the place. And one guy you're not mentioning, you don't have to, is Ty Cobb. He didn't win any choir point. If he's got his old spikes, sharpening him so that he can go ahead and force everybody to have.
You must have heard me
Band-Aids and
covering
all
my
that
mouth
stuff.
over here. I'm going,
Guys
Ty
that
Cobb.
weren't very nice in there. You don't have to mention it, but nothing's stopping me from doing it. So yeah, there are a lot of guys that weren't quite really nice, like Ty Cobb, even though I have a little picture of him outside my office. But it's the truth. Hey, you don't have to.
I was hoping one of you guys would support me.
Oh, come on. Hey, listen, man. I've been in this business like you a long, long time, 43 years. And I don't advertise it and brag about it. It's just you see a lot after a while. Then you like to go to museums to check them out, especially the sports ones. And, shoeless Joe Jackson, nobody knows anything about him except in Field of Dreams, right? But, we can always make a case for putting him in there too, even though none of us were born and probably don't have any family members who are alive even then. 2023. Yeah, I know, Jeremy. How much caffeine did you have? I know, Brian. How much caffeine did you have? Okay, but leave it alone because I've had enough, and I have a feeling sleep is, like I say, a luxury. So, John. Okay, we ain't stealing nobody's thunder, buddy. But the reality of the situation, you are dead right. Okay, because it's not so. In fact, another one, Don Mattingly's in there too, and he didn't bet on anybody. And as far as Pete Rose, if he bet on his own players, at least he thought they were good enough to bet on him in the first place. Now that doesn't condone it, but Don Mattingly belongs there anyway. So does Lou Whitaker. But we can talk about all the guys that aren't there, and we won't do that. We'll leave that for another broadcast. All right, Brian. I know you've done a really good job absorbing everything I had to say. I'm not letting you not talk about this subject, Diane. So go ahead.
Number 14, Pete Rose. Period.
Belong in the Hall of Fame, yes or no?
should have a bus, should have a plaque, should have everything. If he's recognized everywhere else, if he's recognized as the hits leader, then what's taken them so long to immortalize him? I say yes, without a doubt. He should be in the Hall of Fame, period.
What about Smoking Jeremy B? Does Pete belong?
He said it. I would. That's exactly what I was going to say. He belongs in the hits leader for the MLB. He made so many things great from the position he played.
Yep. He made it look good to wear number 14. Okay? He made it look good to wear number 14 with the Phillies and the Reds, and I believe the Montreal Expos as well. He made number 14 look good, just the same. I better not do the second half of that comparison. So,
Well, if you wanted me to comment on Barry Bonds, I'd say leave that fraud out of there, and I'll give you a BALCO reason why you should. So I don't want Barry Bonds anywhere near it. So
it's not. It was.
I think he belongs.
all right.
You
well,
look at the
probably
player he was.
Yeah.
You look at the player he was prior to going to San Francisco. Barry Bonds was a Gold Glove, 300 plus batter the entire time at Pittsburgh, stealing bases, hitting home runs. Still,
Where did he play college ball? Arizona State. I
Yeah, he
believe?
did play.
Played at Arizona State.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know what? I agree with you. I think he's going to get in at some point. Pete Rose will only get in when he's dead. At that point, he won't. But otherwise, he's in there other reasons as well. So, I mean, you know, so everybody has an opinion on this. And I knew that John, at least he can say one thing, John, you finally ran into a first time with everything here, being a better talking to me, the Motor City Madmouth, okay, talking about Pete Rose. With that said, knowing full well that I talk faster than auto racing cars anyways, I should also point out that the audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. So there you go. If you're out in the subway, bus, car, whatever, there you go for the audio version. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. And if you want to be a guest, send plenty of topic ideas or a topic idea to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. And if you want to advertise, call me at 954-304-4941. In the eyes of Brett Musburger, you are looking live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. I had to get that one out there as well. So, you know, I've already given.
whoa, Nelly.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, we'll use that up a lot too. So, I mean, this is one of those fun broadcasts. But let me tell you, when you talk about betting and gambling, this is a trend, folks.
As you look at the Big Ten standings, it's not just a. As you look at the Big Ten standings, that's not just a murmur. That's a full-blown fibrillation.
Exactly. Why do you think we pull in John Ryan Sports here to try to break it all, keep it simple, stupid? If people don't comment on this show here, which I'm sure there'll probably be a lot of them in a lot of different sources. Well, let me tell you, you got a show. We have a show here working with you, John. It's worth commenting on. And I wonder how many enemies I'm going to have with some of the things I'm saying tonight. But, you know, I love you all, folks. Maybe some of the things I say, I can't please you all. But, you know, let's face it, I'm not afraid to talk about any type of subject, no matter what it is. I won't do politics and religion, but otherwise, it's okay. I don't have a problem with it. All right, Brian, you're giving me a reason why you want to talk. Go ahead, Mr.
Agreed.
Snow.
I'm just saying, agreed. I don't do politics. I don't talk about religion, sports, old game shows, a little bit of classic rock music. Those are my areas of expertise. Those are my areas.
Yeah, well, we know about Smoking Jeremy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't do the religion or politics, but he spoke my language when he said classic rock because I was in the 90s cover band.
Okay.
That being said, you know, sports betting and sports have been together prior to us knowing it as sports betting.
Yeah.
The mafia was running numbers way before they ever put it in a casino.
Yep.
Yeah, now they're late to the party. Vegas has got every major sporting event on the planet. Once upon a time, they didn't have anything. And I used to go to Vegas many years ago to watch the big fights over there. It was unbelievable.
Yep.
That wasn't good enough. I used to go to the Grand Canyon, Lake Mead, Boulder Dam, you name it. There's a lot of places to stay out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And God only knows what will happen if they ever get Major League Baseball there. I'll tell you the one thing that sports does do to Vegas. If you don't want to be stuck in the casinos, you can always go to the games just to have a deviation away from there. But we'll address it another time. So
Yeah, just ask the Vegas Golden Knights.
yeah, there you go. Well, they're the first ones that ended up there. Then they got the Raiders. NBA is inevitable, and I know MLB. With the Oakland A's not drawing anybody, we know Vegas being talked about. Well, we got to leave it a little bit for John Ryan for our next broadcast. Oh, I can't wait to get him on the next one when we talk about the NFL draft. So you better, Mr. Ryan, you better be very prepared for that. I will hit you as hard as you'll need 4 more other teeth with the questions I'm going to hit you with.
I welcome the opportunity, and I might add, politics and what was the other topic we don't talk about? Religion. And the Bachelorette. I will add the
Amen.
About Bachelor or Bachelorette.
Amen.
Neither one of them.
All right. Well, with that said, just want to let everybody know this is Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, North Motor City Manmouth. Pleased to be joined by a first-time Brian Snow, who will not be the last time. Smoking Jeremy B. Well, I just drag him everywhere anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. And John Ryan, who I've been in touch for.
I got the road rash to prove it.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably did. I have a lot of things I could talk about now. And John Ryan, who I expect to be a periodic contributor, except when we need him all day long during the NFL season. We don't get good ratings for those, then, I still wear my hat. I'll never not go hatless, but don't worry, John. We're just getting you primed, my friend. As long as we get the time situation right, mark my word, you'll have plenty to talk about. So good first act by everybody. I know we had a lot of interesting things that we went all over the betting map today. Future shows involving John Ryan will be a little bit more specialized and specific oriented. Tonight, we just want to give everybody an overview of what we're doing in terms of sports betting, and I hope everybody's enjoyed that. So with that said, what I'm going to do, Brian Snow, is let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
At Snowman Multimedia is all the ID that you need, because subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/@Snowman Multimedia. We just crossed 500 subscribers. The goal is 1,000 within the next month to get fully monetized. And if you look at the South Florida Tribune coming soon, there's a GoFundMe that I have out there now, because I'm in the process of recovering from the fight of my life and pancreatic cancer, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Wow. I've defeated it, but it came at a huge financial cost and came at a huge stress burden for my family. And I want to do something to help them. So if anybody can help, drop me a message or drop me a comment on my channel, and you'll see I will respond back with the link, and anything that you can do to help my family would be greatly appreciated.
You're very much appreciated. We're always praying for you to stay healthy, Brian. And here at the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, South Florida Tribune, we're looking forward to doing more on-air projects, both ways on my end as well as on your end.
Yes,
and
sir.
Jeremy and Smoking Jeremy, we're going to save you, John, for last, since you came in last.
Well, you can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading under the list of authors. I am also a consultant for Scott here. That being said, I have my own YouTube channel, which is Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, with a show every other Wednesday called the NFL Roundtable, where I talk about the 3 biggest stories that I found over those past 2 weeks. And then every Friday, I have the Lions Fan Cave Chat, where I bring on other fans and we discuss what's going on. And lately, all that's going on is the buzz around the draft and who are we going to take. So at the end of the show, we do a couple mock drafts. Then on the South Florida Tribune, you'll find me on that YouTube channel too. And I don't know what day of the week, because I never know, because Scott just changes it whenever he feels like it.
Well, I'm not as bad as Aaron Rodgers. I don't go out there and waffle all over the place.
I didn't say that. I didn't say you did that, but man, the road rash has got to heal before you change days again.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Who cares? You know what? Hey, listen, I only do that to keep it real. That's all. It doesn't matter. I mean, you know what? I consider myself more Brett Favre than I do Aaron Rodgers. And if you Packer fans wonder why, anybody that can get busted up with the amount of consecutive games that he played is okay with me. All right, but all I can say is Aaron Rodgers, well, never mind. We'll save that for 2 weeks. Got to leave something well for
Save
John
that for later.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry, John. Especially when we get closer to the draft, we're going to dive into the old Rodgers thing, but we weren't going to do it tonight. All right, John Ryan, will let everybody know how they get a hold of you, my friend.
Well, you can find me at John Ryan Sports and #1, the Predictive Playbook YouTube channel, and any of the various shows that I appear on the timeline, on the Twitter timeline. All of them are there. I do 2-minute quick hitting videos as well, just about every single day for each sport, giving you a betting system that you can write down and keep for yourself and bet forever, and that are pretty good. They put a little bit of cabbage in your pocket. So that's where you can find me.
I haven't heard
Sweet.
cabbage in your. I haven't heard cabbage in your pocket for a while. See, all these things people they haven't heard the first time you talk about Pete Rose now cabbage in the pocket. This goes to show you that we've definitely been around a while to be able to exchange one-liners for sure. All right. Well, I've already told you a lot of the regular stuff. So if you're watching us here on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel and you're a Twitter person, go ahead and follow us at Tribune South. Also, our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. Kudos to Candy Ebling. She does an outstanding job making sure the website's intact, making sure the broadcasts go up there, and trying to keep me as healthy as possible because that's no easy task. But, I always say I'm like
That's her hardest job.
Oh, yeah, no, it really is. I mean, but I'm like a Timex watch. Timex takes a licking and keeps on ticking. I take a licking and keep on talking. There's another one for you, Mr. Ryan. Take that one too as well. So don't worry, there's plenty more where that came from. So with that said, this completes this edition of the Sports Exchange. On behalf of Brian, I don't snow in Florida, okay? Had to do that, okay? Smoking Jeremy B, who will be in an Oklahoma town before you know it, and John Ryan, who will be on this broadcast periodically and probably in football season a lot more. This is Scott Morgan, Route to Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and we will see you tomorrow with a brand new broadcast as well. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is scheduled on our agenda. Good night, everybody. We will catch you the next time. Bye now.
That was a blast.